Hey, welcome to Sketch Magazine. Robert here. I'm here with Chris. Hey, Chris.
Hey Bob, how's it going?
All right, how you doing, bud?
Doing well.
Been watching that Danger Tour Kickstarter.
Yep. Looking good, isn't it?
It's looking good, looking good. I can't wait to get my copies of it.
Oh, here, copies. That's all.
Wow, I think I went with one of the larger bundles, which is
Okay,
everything
cool.
that's in print. So
That's
yeah,
right. Yeah, awesome.
yeah. And if I already got a copy of it, I'll share it with somebody.
That'd be cool.
Get the word out. So today we're going to talk on the very basics. If you have an idea, why do you want to make it into a comic book? Why do you pursue that concept into a comic? And I know myself, since I do comics and now I write novels. Um, I guess it's a hard question. Somebody threw that out here at us, and I'm sort of like going, well, yeah, every idea could be a comic. Actually, my novel, Came Off Forever, was originally a comic. I got a lot of
Right.
artwork for it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like was going nowhere. And I just thought, well, I think the whole subject matter, and maybe that's the key right there. The subject matter would work within a novel more than, say, my Blood and Roses comic book. I don't know if that would work as a novel or not.
Right.
It's definitely a visual. So I guess is how much does the concept depend on visuals?
That's true. I think we once talked about how I know for me, I would find it difficult to write a book like a novel that is a superhero. It just seems I don't know. That's me. I just think describing people shooting lasers out of their arms and cars blowing up and it just I don't know. Maybe we need to edit this part out. I don't know.
No. I like that concept because
Yeah.
I don't really have a problem with that concept. But I've always said that for me, I think if I wanted to do my movie,
Mm-hmm.
at least with comics, I can get away with any special effects. I can show what I'm wanting to do. I can
Yep.
do the big battle. It's like in writing Paradox Wars. I was talking to Mitch Bird, and I was like, "Here, just take the next 4 pages and write out this thing and intro dinosaurs and steam engines." And it came back 4 pages of it.
Right.
So we were able to expand and do things that in special effects, even nowadays, as special effects are getting easier to do, they're still very expensive.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so I would want to experiment with something that I see as a movie in comics to see if it really works visually.
Right.
There's something to be said is one thing I found out, and I'm finding out with Came Off Forever, is you're packing 5 or 6 graphic novels into a novel.
Mm-hmm.
You got to put a lot more content into a novel than you do a comic. Because if you're doing issues and chapters, it breaks down to chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And we're like, Came Off Forever, you've got to go all the way through here and fill in all this information to fill 400 pages, 500 pages of content.
Right.
So it takes a lot more story to tell in a novel than it does a comic. So I think it's
Yeah.
visuals and probably for me it's what I want to see is visuals and what I want to see the character see how it all works out
Right.
and looks like.
Okay. So back in the day when I was a young little guy,
Wee little lad.
I actually wrote a couple of books, novels, and sent them into publishers. I was like a teenager, and I got some letters back, and they said they were very nice, and they gave me some great critiques, which I don't know if they do. I'm sure some editors will probably still do that today.
I think so.
But as time went on, I always thought, well, I'll write a book later. Comic books have just been a default setting for me. I
Right.
come up with an idea, it's going to be a comic. It's just kind of how it has been,
Right.
you know.
Right.
But yeah, I do see. I'm at a point where I'm going to write a book.
Mm-hmm.
I think I really should,
I think so.
but I've got several ideas, and I don't know which one to do.
Right.
So I mean,
Right.
You know.
Well, I know we both self-published, and
Hmm.
we know the effort it takes to work with talent, to put everything
Hmm.
together, to get it printed, to get it out to stores or through fulfillment of crowdfunding. It's a lot of time that we don't get back to be creative.
Right.
A novel, you do. It's easier with a novel, but to get the end product out. But
Hmm.
it's such a huge audience base. It's such a huge base that, like, right now, I just redesigned the cover for Camelot Forever, Lancelot's Redemption,
Right.
to fit more within the genres that that book seems to be falling within. So I'll be redesigning. I'll be posting a new cover here in the next week or so, and hopefully give it another kickstart because the cover now fits and looks more like what other people are looking for in those areas.
Hmm.
So it's I think it's harder to build a readership maybe as a novel because there's so much of it out there. How do you
Right.
grab the handful of people and say, "Hey, come and check out my stuff"?
Right. Well, at first, I'd like to amend what you said because I know some
Okay.
people they might be a little upset, and I know you didn't mean it this way, but
Yeah,
making a novel is not easier than comics. Writing the novel,
publishing the novel is
publishing, right?
easier. Thank
That's
you.
yes, right.
Thank you.
Yeah, with a comic book, you've got to have however many pages, art. You got to do art direction. You got to create that. With the
Mhm.
novel, if you don't have any illustrations throughout, like chapter illustrations or whatever, you
Right.
got one piece of art. That's the
Yeah, the
cover,
cover.
and
Mhm.
then the back
But
cover,
the
which is the
cover
same.
is
Yeah,
so key. I mean,
it's
I really thought
yes,
I came into publishing that book, and we're going off on another tangent here, but I was really arrogant on no, I wanted this cover. This is my cover, even though now when I look at it within all the genres and areas that it falls within Amazon,
mm-hmm,
it doesn't really fit in.
right.
You
It
know,
stands
and
out for the
that's
wrong
why
reason.
exactly.
Mm-hmm,
And it's just not getting any traction except for the initial traction.
right.
So I'm interested in putting this new one out on it and seeing if that will cause more traction to the book. I've not had many negative reviews.
Mm-hmm,
The reviews have been positive. So yeah, um, I think publishing was easier because there's so many steps to publishing a comic book, especially if you're studioing it. Also, it's
right.
different than if you're writing and doing a book, you hand it to somebody else, say, "Here, go finish it for me."
Right. You
But neither
also
you or I never want to do it that way.
right. No,
We see the
I've
book
got to have
to
my hands
completion.
on. Yeah. Like every book that I do, every comic book I do, I've touched the pages. Let me see. I wrote it. I letter it. I
Yep.
ink it. I
Yep.
color it. I
Yep.
reread it. Then I package it. So I've touched these pages, each one probably 6 times.
Yes.
Touched as in like dealt
Yes.
with.
Yes.
I know that sometimes writing deciding either well, I'm going to make this into a comic book. I know we've talked in the past about if you're just a writer, you don't have and you don't have any money set aside to hire a penciler, and you really want to do this as a comic book, that might be your deciding factor. Hey, you know what? I'm just going to write a novel,
Right. Right.
and because the only person you have to deal with is you.
Right.
And I think that might be that's a
it-
perfectly good solution.
A good editor. You need
Yeah.
a good editor too.
Right.
Never
Right.
never publish without having it edited. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
But in this conversation, I'm sort of I've as if you know me, in Skystorm, I have many projects juggling around.
Right.
And right now we've got, we did Paradox Wars. We're currently looking for a new artist to jump on with chapter 2.
Mhm.
We're getting ready to launch the Hellgirl project. Camelot Forever is sitting there. Race Danger is sitting there. Darkness Chronicles is sitting there.
Yeah.
Warlace is sitting there. Race Danger is sitting there. So it's like, ah.
Yeah.
So what I did a few years ago, I'm like, okay, these I want to see as comic books because they're so visuals,
Mhm.
or they've already got visuals created for them, like Blood and Roses. They're the lead in Paradox Wars. So we had like 7 issues of Blood and Roses. We already got visuals for all of them, all the bad guys, everything. So it was easy to move that into my Crisis series, my Paradox Wars series.
Right.
Camelot Forever, we had a few character designs, a few filled pages. The artist took the money and ran. So I'm sort of like, okay, I really like this book. This story's up here and it needs to come out.
Yeah, it's
Um,
pounding up there.
Oh, it was. And now the second book, I'm really hoping get through the holidays to wrap it up and get the second book out. But it's like, okay, just do this as a novel and see how it goes. Bill Nichols came on, fleshed out some other things, wrote his part of it, and boom, a short story turned into a full-fledged novel for us.
Right.
So it's fun. It's a different way of storytelling. It's harder for me to go back and reread a novel and make notes and stuff from it
Yeah.
than it is sit there and flip through a comic book. And
Right.
go, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's
Yeah.
take this character and do this.
Right.
But
Yeah,
that's what I'm in the process of doing is going back, rereading the novels, taking notes, so that make sure. Oh yeah, we said this. Let's pick this up over here in this novel.
Right. You gotta have.
Should have done that from the beginning, and I didn't.
Right.
So I'm
You
gonna
gotta have good
back
notes
step.
if you're gonna do that. Yeah.
Yes.
So, you're
So-
listing all your properties now.
Yes.
When I did Tales of the Dark Tunnel, I ended up creating another IP,
Yes.
from public domain.
Uh-huh.
And in there, I did a 10-page short story in the back about a public domain character that had appeared in one story, and that character got the ultimate shaft. I thought, I mean, just
Right.
terrible ending. It's just kind of a silly story. So I gave her new life, Scarlet Unknown, and as I look back on that book, I think that story came out great.
I do
And
too.
I hired I hired Sean Van Beesen. I'm sorry if you're watching this, Sean. Don't get mad at me. But I hired him from his work on the magazine The Creeps,
Right.
the horror magazine, right?
Mhm.
And I just love how it turned out. But I still think it could have been scarier. And perhaps it had to do with the fact that what we're putting out in a comic book is what I wrote down, Sean interpreted as the penciler, and then what I interpreted it as an inker. And I'm showing it to the reader, and the reader's not using their imagination.
Right.
So I'm really thinking, and I'm not sure which one to do, but she's always been a little higher, doing a novel about another story about her,
Oh,
because
I think that'd be great.
it could be more. The reader fills in the gaps
Yes.
on some of those things, and I think that would be a really good place for her. See, now that was an example where I did it as a comic because, like I said, I'm default setting a comic book. Everything I write, a comic book. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But now looking back on it and rereading it again, I'm not disparaging. I love that sequence, that great 10-page story, and really gave me a feeling like I was reading a book from the 70s, which I think Sean did a great job on that.
He did.
Yeah, really just nailed it. But yeah, I
know
think
the coloring on that story and
Mhm.
is traditional, fits that pulp type era.
right.
Do you think if you went with a more modern, moody color scene, it would have helped it? I know where you're going with when you do your
Yeah.
characters. You want that feel. You want that
Mm-hmm.
that 50s, 40s, 50s feel for it.
Right.
But if you went with more shading and darker colors, or
Yeah,
would it not fit within?
I don't
that
think
story?
I honestly don't think it fits. I have seen people
Okay.
who have taken and removed the color from comic books from the 70s
yeah.
or illustrations from the 70s and the 80s, and then they've colored it with the modern style with all the hyper shading and everything. And for some reason, that art just doesn't look good that way
Yeah, I
because
agree.
it's rendered to be color or not. But then you toss
Right.
in all the other stuff. I just think that might be a better character for novels.
I think it'd be cool.
Yeah.
And I have a new
Uh-oh.
cover artist for it too.
Oh, you do?
You write it, we'll come up. Yes, he's
Okay.
in Ukraine.
Oh,
He's the guy
okay.
that did my new cover.
Oh, the
which
cover
I think
for
turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I came across another public domain character I thought could be a villain
Uh-huh.
for that story. I mean, yeah. Like I said, I've been thinking about it, and if I did it, I'm honestly thinking about doing it like YA because I don't want to get.
Oh no, that's where Came Off Forever went.
Yeah,
There's a
I
larger
just-
audience in YA. There's a lot of different genres within that area
Oh yeah,
that to fall into.
I've
So,
walked through a Barnes and Noble or Books
oh,
a
go through
Million.
Amazon. There's tons and
Oh,
tons of
Amazon
things.
too. Yeah, right.
We'll work together on that because
Yeah, but
there's
that's been an
stuff
idea
like
of mine. But I just
okay,
never had an idea. I was like, I should do more with this character,
right, right,
and then I just never had an idea for what to do.
right.
But again, I think that would fall into
I
a
agree.
novel really, really well. Now, my wife just wants to see more with that character. She loves spooky,
Good.
supernaturally stuff, and she's like, well, "Why don't you do a story about this?" I'm like, "Well, I'll come up with the idea." No, just if you're watching this, Amy, I'm sorry, I'm joking.
No, I don't think he is,
No, I
Amy.
took her idea and ran with it for the fifth issue. I'm sorry, the sixth issue of Freaks and Gods, an
There you go.
underwater type story. She wanted to
Yes.
see something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you take sidebar. You take the ideas where you can get them.
Yes,
You
you
know,
do.
if
Yes, you
you
do.
have a son or a daughter who is a young, 10 or under,
Yes. Oh,
listen
yeah.
to their rattling. If you have a niece or a nephew, listen to their
Yes.
rattlings. Just write it down.
Yes. Because they're not hindered by anything. They will
No, they're
just
yeah,
put out their ideas.
they're
Yes.
not hindered by the well. You can't do that.
Right.
Well, why? With
I
your
think I think another idea for wanting to make comics is how much time do you want to spend with this property?
right.
I think because as you know, with public domain, you're rotating a lot of characters in and out, but you
Hmm.
have your core. You have your
Yeah,
core group that's yours.
that's mine. Yeah.
All right. I've got like with Paradox Wars, I've got Blood and Roses, and they will be coming in and out of that series, but it's sort of them following them within that
Hmm.
series. Um, and I like writing those characters. I know those characters. I know if something was said, how they would handle it. I know if something was done, how they would characterize it. It's just I know those characters. Um, so I think it's like how much do you want to spend time with those characters and how visual? I think it's the whole visual thing.
Hmm.
But it's also look at markets. The
Yeah.
market has changed. So what's going to make your comic build a readership, a fan base?
Hmm.
Is it superheroish? And is that popular right now? Excuse my
Uh
phone.
oh.
Um, is that popular right now? Is it humor? Is it
Mhm.
public domain? Is it fantasy sci-fi like what I do? What makes you think you can get a following for this book? Are you just doing it because you want to do it? That's fine. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with creating comics just because you and a group of friends want to make comics. I think that's one of the greatest things ever.
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree with that.
But what we're doing here is okay. How do we build a core following around ourselves that want to see stuff that we produce?
Right.
And that's sort of what we're looking at now. That's sort of why I went off and did the novel to see if I could build a following for that. One thing I didn't realize is so much with novels is you have to treat it like comics and you have to constantly be out there
Hmm.
as a novelist, and that's one thing I've failed on this year. I've gotten so busy in the day job and working on these comics and stuff again, and launching a YouTube studio that I sort of failed on actively going out there and trying to build a readership for the novels. Something I will fix with the release of the second novel.
Right.
You've got to stay out there in front of them. So I think you could say it's easier for comics because you can go out and do shows, but how many people do we? Let's get real. Shows are not the save all.
No.
Shows you get to reach a very fine amount of the people that walk through the door.
Hmm.
So if you're doing a little show, you're going to reach a couple people. You do a medium-sized show, your reach is larger, but who you really communicate is pretty small. If you do a large show, your reach is larger, but honestly,
Yeah.
the people you talk to it's very small outreach.
Right. You actually might reach more people at a small show than you would a giant show because you won't be swallowed up.
Yes.
But still, it's a
yes.
small percentage, a small amount of people.
And how much time do you give to shows like that?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I had to cancel a show couple of months ago because of a family thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was going to be like a Sunday show. And I was going to reach out, take the novel, take some comics, and just see, like what you just said, how many
Yeah.
people I could reach at a small show again. It's
Mm-hmm.
been a few years since I've done one. Clay and I are talking about doing one early next year. Just a small show to see how we can reach, how many
Right.
people we can reach. So
Yeah, that's the story with absolutely everything any creator creates. If you're a musician, if you're an author, if you're a painter, if you're a comic book artist,
yes,
how do you find these people?
yes,
Which has absolutely got nothing to do right now with the topic we started with.
nothing. But it's something you need to be thinking about. If you're going to put
Always,
all this
yeah.
effort and creativeness
Mhm.
into creating a comic, or I'm going to say novel, either
Right.
one, you've got to realize you're going to spend 10x that time
Mm-hmm.
in trying to build some type of following for yourself. And I really do think you try to build a following. You and I have been discussing. You really do
Mhm.
try to build a following for yourself as much as for your properties.
Right.
You know, like a musician, they don't build a following for their songs or their albums. They
Yes,
build a
right.
following for them.
Right.
And I think it shows for like Brian Polito, Coffin Comics. They have a
Mhm.
following. They toss out a Lady Death comic, it does
Yep.
great. They throw out a Hell Witch comic, it does good. It's not doing Lady Death numbers, but it does good. They've got this core following. Billy Tucci, he puts out
Yeah.
a She Kickstarter, boom, it does. They're there for him. If he did one of his other properties, it would probably do good. Not as well as she, because
Right.
she is the project for him.
Right.
But the core following would be good for him.
Right.
So the key is, I think Brian a long time ago figured this out because he was into music and everything. You've got to build that following for yourself. You got to bring them along. So comics or novels, I would say, how do you want to do it? What do you want to do? You want to write comic books? You want to draw comic books? You want to ink it? It's got to be what? Why do you? But you need to look around you and think, will this be successful? Does that
Mhm.
matter? Does it matter to you that it's successful?
Yeah,
Or is it a
that's
vanity project that you just want to do?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And then execute. Right now with crowdfunding,
It's all there.
yes.
Right.
You get that following, you bring them with you. There is some following on crowdfunding, but getting it to follow you is I
Right.
don't know how your numbers are, but when I look at bringing people into it, it's always from the outside in. I'm bringing people to my Kickstarter
Right.
more than Kickstarter is creating it for me.
Right. I get like just a couple.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So
Right.
it's really important. So what
You know-
makes it go ahead.
I think, honestly, sometimes when someone asks me, "Why do you do comics?" I'm kind of like, "What do you mean? What do you mean? Why I do? Why don't you?" It's like you know what I mean. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
it's again. I go back to statement. It's a default. Like you say,
Right.
I want to make this into a novel. That's because that person is probably thinking, "I'm going to be a novelist. I'm going to write books."
Right.
So sometimes people don't think that they could do this property, this idea as something else. It's like a
Right.
default setting. It's something that they've always just wanted.
Right.
I'm going to write books. I'm going to write comics, you know? So
Mhm.
to have these discussions, it's actually kind of, sometimes it's a little, it's hard for me to articulate because
Yeah.
like, you know, again, why do you do comics? What do you mean? Of course,
Yeah.
that's what I do. I'm CBC, Comic Book Chris. What do you,
Comic book Chris.
that's what
Yes.
some people used to always call me that. And it's like, well, of course, that's what I do. But you know,
I guess I did up until a couple years ago when I had to make my mind up. I've
Mhm.
got all these stories and all these characters, and I want to do something with them.
mm-hmm.
So, and it got harder and harder for me to justify doing comics because of the huge investment. And that's
There's-
another thing we need to think
I
about.
talked about that earlier. I'd mentioned if you
Yeah.
don't have the money to hire
That's
artists,
the ticket.
Right.
Yeah, it's easier for me. So I went through and earlier I listed like all these different properties, and then
Mm-hmm.
about 2 years ago, I went through and said, okay, Camelot Forever, it's just to make novels. We can expand the story. We can bring in all kinds. And it's amazing. When you sit down to write, all this other ideas start flooding in that you would never have as comics. You would never expand on this in comics. So the story gets richer and bigger, and it sort of flows. I said, okay, Race Danger. It could work as novels. It could work as those short little pulp novels.
Oh, yeah.
Those little 200-pagers.
Light readers, they're called.
Yeah, light reading. It would work great. So I'm sort of roughing out that concept for those stories. Everything else I piled into Paradox Wars. Because I knew I wouldn't get a Tempered Steel series. I won't get a Warley series. I won't get, another Blood and Roses series. I won't get a Vaporlock series. I won't get a Darkness Chronicles series. It's too much.
Right.
But all these characters are already designed over the years. I've done one-shots, or I have issues sitting here finished or something. So why not do my Crisis series, my big event series, Paradox Wars, and start playing within those contexts. So we're creating one new series, and I get to play and push in and out all these characters and get to, we still have 4 or 5 issues of comics that's never been published sitting here.
Well, then you got to publish those.
Well, we got Hellgirl coming out next week, so yeah.
Yes.
Or actually, when this supposed to be this week.
Right.
So yes, we have, and I'll put a link below. But we got Hellgirl coming out. We have Temper Steel lined up. We have Darkness Chronicles lined up. We have Savage Family lined up. All of these are lined up to fit within the Paradox Wars story.
Oh, I'm sitting over here, and I got like 3, and I thought I was doing well. You got a lot.
We were just discussing my 10 to 12 hour days.
Yeah.
I don't see them lightening up anyway soon.
Right, yeah. I've got another property, but it's like really like super depressing and...
You might do well then.
Unit primes, yeah, maybe. Yeah, it might hit a chord with the nihilists out there.
yeah. I love that series.
Oh, man. Amy, my wife won't even read it.
Won't she?
She read the back of it, and she's like, no, thank you. I'm like, you have to read it. You're my wife.
I don't think Kate's ever read any of my comics.
I don't think that's how that works.
I don't think she ever read my novel either. I asked her, I said, "Did you ever read my novel?" I think she said, "No."
No. Oh.
She goes, I know how your mind works. We've been married 36 years this past
that'll
week,
do it. Yeah.
She goes, I don't need to read your work. I said, okay, fine.
She probably just dozed off because she knows, that's exactly what Bob would say that day would happen.
Yeah. So,
definitely banning my wife from watching this video.
I'm going to send her a direct link.
Oh, you would too. And she'd watch it too.
Yeah, she would.
She's like, well, your numbers need to be up. Oh, dear. Have fun.
What makes a good comic? It's I'll be honest, I don't think there's a formula or genre. I think it's something that you feel like you need to share. You're willing to put the effort into it. You realize that, and it's going to take a lot of effort, not just creating, but a lot of effort in getting it out there. It's always that part that even to this day, I slacked on the novel. I paid a lot of money, got a lot of ads, got it out there, made it bestseller, and then it's just sort of floated.
Yeah, there was no plan to continue with it, right? So
now I got to learn from that. I'm getting ready to do another Kickstarter. Can I build that into another Kickstarter? Can we do Hellgirl, and then if we can build that up, can we do another issue? I don't know. That's on the
see
table.
How that goes, right? Yeah.
Right. So it's how much work we put into it to keep it growing. So we put 10 times the effort of creating it to promote it. Are you willing to put that effort into it? Or again, is it just a vanity project that you want to crank out and you love? There's not a thing wrong with that.
No, that's awesome too.
So,
but you know what's funny? If anyone has any comments, obviously leave them below. We'd like to hear what you think. But it always does come down to, and if anyone says, you guys always talk about building a fan base, it always comes down to that. Because
it really does.
If it's not a vanity project and you really just want to tell your stories because you think these are great stories that everybody should read, you got to promote that.
Yes. I've told this story before, and I'll tell it again. My old comic shop I own is right down in the corner of this plaza. I was told by the owners, who are the sweetest, greatest people I know, that they would not put my comic on the shelf because of the price it cost to give up one spot for a comic, because I don't have a fan base or following.
That's right.
That is fine. So that I took that as a challenge to start building my fan base. So then I can go in and say, hey, this book sold this many copies and it's doing this. Now they will look at it and go, okay, let's give it a shot, So I took it as a challenge, not as a put down, not as a negative. Something I hadn't thought about. But,
Yeah.
I mean, I know the concept with owning a video game store. Every slot counts. Every slot counts, costs you money. You
Right.
got to be able to recoup that fund, that investment.
Right.
So, yeah, I think, go out, do it, create it, and hype it. That's all I can say.
Right.
Do it. Want to put, there's a couple sponsor stuff I totally blew by, didn't do.
Oh, that's right.
Yep. Sketchmagazine.net. Free membership, members only. Go sign up. You'll get access to the site, get access to all 47 sketch magazines once the last one comes out. But you get access to all 46 right now. Tons of articles, Chris's speed inkings. There's some of that over there.
Yep.
There's tons of interview. Chris has an interview over there. Liam Sharp just got interviewed. Ryan Shook just got interviewed. I think we got about 75 more lined up to get pushed out over the next year. Tons of how-tos, tips, techniques, all kinds of stuff. And it's free. You sign up, you agree with the membership sign up, and it's free to you.
Awesome.
Skystorm Books. We'd be reluctant not to push our new publishing company.
Yeah,
Skystorm
that's right.
Books.
Yep,
There'll
Skystorm
be a link
Books.
down below. This is where my stuff is going to come out. Chris's new stuff is going to come out. We'll have new announcements, so sign up for it. There'll be a link for the newsletter. That's the best way. And we will also be creating new content for that site and keeping you updated. And we just launched a brand new Discord channel for Skystorm Books.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you're a gamer, or if you're not a gamer and you know Discord, jump over. I'll put the invite below, and join our Discord, because we will definitely be sharing stuff on there that you're not going to see somewhere else.
Right, and then you can ask us questions.
Yeah, direct contact with the creators.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Discord. We've been using it creatively for a while, and we just opened up the public one.
Yeah, you just dragged me into it a couple months ago.
A couple months ago. But isn't that great how we can communicate and share things?
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, what do you think about that? You go, nah, I don't think so. Do this to it. All right. And it's instant. It's like boom, boom.
Right. Yeah. It is cool. Right.
So it works really great. But all right. Well, our 15-minute ran into 34. So I know.
Maybe we should shoot for a 5-minute video, and then we'll actually come out with a 15-minute one.
We'll do that next week.
Perfect. I love it.
All right. Take care.
All right. Talk to you later.